Welcome back to He's a Giant, a pod about all things college football and all things Giants football. A little bit tardy today. That is my fault. I apologize, everybody. I am your host, Sal. I was here with my co-host, Monty. What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? No, it's not just you. We got a double host run late today, so
I was
apologies,
trying to,
guys.
I was trying to take one for the team here, man.
You know
Can't do
what?
that.
It takes a lot to review these guys. Sometimes it comes down to the last minute to finish up some of these notes. There's a lot to go over with these guys, so we do it for you.
Absolutely. Um, so this episode, I'm just sending out a couple of quick messages. So this episode, as we teased last week, is going to be our review of the cornerbacks of the upcoming 2025 class. And before we dive into that, I'll just tell everybody this is a really, really good cornerback class.
Yeah.
Like this is what you want if you need a cornerback, and luckily the Giants need everything, so we can absolutely be looking at cornerback. It's strong, and we're going to enjoy doing this, and that's why it took us a little bit longer to get going because we wanted to basically bring you guys as much info as possible before we started. But before we get into the cornerbacks, Monty, by the way, first of all, hello to everybody in the chat. I'm going to let everybody filter in. Thank you guys for always being here and supporting us. Remember to like, subscribe, share. If you don't mind, share the tweet on Twitter that we are live. Tell your friends. You know what to do. Anyway, Monty, before we get into corners, let's talk about week 2 of the Giants. I was there in
You
Washington.
were.
I'm a local. I'm a DMV guy. So I went to the game, went there with my buddy AJ, who was kind enough to fly down from Boston. And we went to the game, met up with some cool people. We went to Christopher Peace's, to his tailgate with his lovely wife. Shout out Chris Peace, awesome tailgate host. Enjoyed some good times with Chris, his wife. Met up with my boy Authentic out there and the Beard. We had a great time before the game, just talking ball, enjoying each other's company. So shout out to all of them, and I appreciated meeting you guys. Hopefully, if we do this again, we get more people to meet up. But then the game started, and it was fun. I have to be honest, man. It was a fun game. I had a really good time at the game, watching the Giants and the Commanders. The vibes at Old FedEx, now Northwest Field, were really fun. Like there was a lot of music, people like really enjoying themselves, good vibes, good feelings, fun game. But man, ended in typical obnoxious, annoying Giants fashion. So, what
Yeah.
were your thoughts watching from home, man?
I was actually at the party after a christening, but there was like 4 TVs there. It was at like sports bar, so I was still able to watch. But yeah, I mean, I was still locked in on it, and yeah, it's typical Giants, man. I feel like I was going through deja vu with this fucking kicker issue. Like the same thing happened last year. Um, there was obviously excitement about the game. It wasn't like all negative. I mean, Malik Neighbors looked incredible. I mean, he totally took over that game. He looked unstoppable. Daniel Jones looked fine. He didn't look like he was a guy who couldn't throw a football like he has the last few times we saw him on a field. So that was a positive. Still, Daniel Jones still not, he leads the NFL in QB caused pressures, and he added another 3 this week. So, that's not great. But, overall, he wasn't the reason we would have won, but he's not the reason we lost either. Um, but the disappointing part was the mismanagement of the kicker. That's one of the main reasons we lost. And Gano popped up on the injury report. He was grimacing, according to Dan Duggan, throughout warmups, and even went back in to get wrapped up again. And they still had him kicking off and didn't pull and left the empty spot in the roster instead of bringing up a potential emergency plan at kicker. And then our defense couldn't get off the field. Didn't force Washington to punt once. They did play bend don't break and didn't allow any touchdowns, but you can't do that and not force any punts. You need to be able to get off the field in third down. And yeah, man, it's disappointing. It's a game that we really should have won, and we blew it. So I don't know. What are your thoughts outside of just the vibes at the game?
I mean, the theme of the game was we couldn't get the ball back. Washington just kept running the ball, and they played a very conservative game plan over there. They have a rookie quarterback. I think they're gradually easing him in, and they were making the game as simple as possible for him. And I think he was doing what I think a rookie quarterback generally should do early in his career, which is I'm not going to be the reason we lose this game.
Hmm.
Just play some smart football, make some good decisions, and he doesn't have to play Superman hero stuff, and he didn't make mistakes, which is actually very impressive when you think about it in retrospect, from a cerebral part of the game. So props to Jaden Daniels on that. I wasn't super impressed with him. He certainly didn't show the things you saw at LSU, but again, he's a rookie in his second game. So like I wasn't really expecting to see it. I think the game speed has to be something that these kids get used to and learn. I think that's true for all rookies. I've always made that point. Like I think these kids often get rushed onto the field too fast. But overall, we couldn't stop them. And it was really about defensive scheme. I think we have such a terrible match of talent and scheme. It's a terrible mismatch of what we have in terms of personnel and what I think Shane Bowen is trying to do. It doesn't make any sense. Um, I think we spent a lot of time on Spaces talking about this afterwards, but I mean, I saw it it's different when you watch it and you're there. The amount of green grass that is allowed by the Giants defense, both before the snap and after the snap, like post snap, like how they back off, they allow nothing but space, and it's just there. If you want to take it, you take it. And if I mean, it's there for screens, it's there for runs and scrambles. It's just easy 6 to 12 yards if you want it. And that's what Washington did. They just said, all right, you're going to give us this, we're going to take it. We're going to keep running the ball, we're going to keep taking those scrambles, we're going to take those screens. And there was no answer for it. There was no adjustment. We depend on a pass rush of 4 guys, and while those guys definitely underperformed, it's a difficult task to have to pass rush when there's absolutely nothing behind you in run defense, and the other team knows it, and they're taking advantage of that. So I'm not loving what I'm seeing from Shane Bowen right now. I'm not loving the fact that
Nope.
that there's no adjustments, and we're playing this style of defense without the personnel to back it up. Maybe it's just early in the season and they're adjusting. I don't know. It didn't look good, and I personally don't know how it's going to get better.
Th-
So
This
yeah,
is
it's disappointing. That's all I can say.
Yeah, this is two things I'll say about Bowen. I'll just kind of defensive coordinator slash Bowen situation. One, it doesn't feel like Bowen is doing anything to get home to the quarterback. It seems like he is just asking his front four to win, and we knew that to some extent. We knew like they rushed forward, but I'm not seeing any creative like stunts or like simulated pressures or anything like that. They're just sending their four and hoping they get home, and they outside of Dexter Lawrence, Thibodeau and Burns were better to this game, but they certainly didn't take over the game. And he's not getting any. They're not getting any help from Shane Bowen. So I know a lot of people. What I thought was unfairly, as far as a football coach and scheme and a coordinator, shit on Wink Martindale, but Wink Martindale, yes, he also got gashed in the run game, but he was not perfect. This defense is not perfect. It is hard to scheme and have successful defense with the personnel we have on this team. Especially last year, we for the most part got better. We lost Xavier McKinney, but especially like post trading Leonard Williams, I certainly think we improved on paper, but it's not showing up on the field, and that was something that Wink Martindale was good at doing. He made it our defense not look as bad as it actually was, and we don't have that advantage at defensive coordinator anymore. I think for the most part that is pretty much the norm. I think a lot of defensive coordinators in the NFL are what their defense is. I think Wink Martindale is one of the exceptions to that, and we unfortunately don't have him anymore. So we are stuck with another run of the mill defensive coordinator.
I I kept thinking to myself, we would have won that game with Wayne Martindale as defensive coordinator.
He would have had Jaden Daniel in hell. Jaden Daniel,
Right.
I think he led the NFL this week in QB on pressures. So like he was
I mean,
he had 3
he's a
QB
rookie.
on
Yeah,
sacks, I think. Yeah.
he's a rookie. I mean, I don't care how good you are. I don't care how good or great you may end up being one day. You're a rookie in your second game, and if you allow him to sit back there, as athletic as he is, he's gonna punish you with his legs eventually, and that's what he did. And he just sat there and he took what was given to him by the defense and he punished them with his legs because they were letting him. Um, I think Wink Martindale would have absolutely brought the house against him several times and tried to force him into mistakes. I think he would have potentially seen turnovers. Maybe Wink gives up a touchdown and not 7 field goals, but I know one thing is for sure: Wink doesn't give up 7 scoring long drives to
Yeah.
to to Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in that game. He would have absolutely forced the issue. And look, if the rookie beats you under duress, you tip your hat to the rookie and say, okay, you're special. But you don't let the rookie pick you apart slowly with just like screens and checkdowns and just scrambles. Like that's just it was a bizarre game plan, and especially against a quarterback like that, like where he's gonna do it. Like he's gonna take the if you're gonna give him a huge running lane, he's gonna take it, and he's gonna punish you. So it was just a disappointing game to watch play out. And I'll be honest, man, I came away from that thinking there were no adjustments, and this is just how the season's gonna look. We're not gonna get new personnel. Probably not gonna get a new coordinator in season. It's just going to look like this for the rest of the year.
Hmm.
And I mean, at the end of the day, this is just going to come down to what Shane Bowen's philosophy is, which is the players are just going to have to figure this out. They're just going to have to play better. They're going to have to figure this out and just play better and play above the X's and O's here. That's all I can say in terms of trying to save the defensive side of things. That's where I am with this team overall, man. It's looking like a long season. I'm trying not to get too down thinking about it. I'm trying not to get too high thinking about the rage factor of it. I'm just kind of
Yeah.
watching it. I'm just kind of watching it and seeing what happens at this point.
Yep. And that's we have college football to go back. We can start looking at the draft, and we can be that escape for a lot of people who need to start looking unfortunately towards 2025 already.
We are here for you guys.
Yeah.
It's and around Giants world. He's a Giant season because you're always
Yeah.
looking forward to the draft, and we're here for you guys, and we'll get to that in a second. Um, the only final thing I want to say about this whole situation for the Giants right now, Monty, is what's on full display, and it's worth mentioning on our own platform is the absolute. I'm just gonna say it, the absolute GM malpractice on full display here. Joe Shane has assembled a roster that does not fit what their organizational values supposedly are. Does not seem to fit what his coaches need. It doesn't fit the timeline they've given themselves. It doesn't fit anything. There's good players on the roster, but none of it fits. None of it makes sense. And it looks like a mishmash of talent. It's any random yokel can assemble good players. A good executive puts together a football team
Yep.
and makes it for his team, makes it for his coaches so he can be successful. And it's really beginning to look like this is headed towards where I feared it would go when the Giants decided to not address the quarterback position in the draft. It's headed towards what looks like a catastrophic failure of a season. And if that's where it goes, I think we're looking at it just straight up cleaning house. Rip the bandage off, everybody loses their job, and that is that. So
And I'll say to that, Sal, is try to give a little bit of a positive perspective on it. If that's the way this goes, yes, like we have not put a good team together, kind of fit what we're doing and fit what the coaches are doing, and all that's an issue. But we do have building blocks on this team, and in a league where you see massive turnover on every team from year to year, the important aspect is that you have building blocks, and if we bring in the right GM and the right head coach and they can get their right quarterback, there are building blocks to build this team around. So, that is not something we necessarily had, not even just to Shane's credit. Like some players didn't even break out until he came here. And then, Shane added lucky enough to pick high and get a guy like Malik Neighbors. Like there's certain pieces that will be here for the next guy, which is not necessarily something that we had last time around. So at least there's that.
Yep. Well, I mean, I don't know if I fully agree with that relative to where he started, but I get what you're saying. There's definitely some talent on this roster. We'll see. We'll see how it shakes out, man. It's not looking good right now, and as it's trending, we're gonna have to work on our special
Yeah.
episode
I'll
where
I'll,
we're
I'll just
preview. we're previewing future executives.
Yeah,
And which we, by the way, guys, we're working on. We're already working on it. So anyway, go ahead.
yeah. And I'll just say to like, I get where you're come from with like not totally, but even like Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence were not blue chip pieces when Joe Shane came in, but they are, but we know they are now. So that not even necessarily to the point of how well Joe Shane did, just how the players have finally come into their own. We have finally started to find some pieces, which is a positive.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, man. You want to get to this and discuss the cornerback class of the upcoming draft?
Yeah, man. Why don't you go ahead and lead us off with our first guy here?
All right. So for our loyal listeners, you guys know our usual format. We go 1 through 5 typically for our top 5 corners, and we actually go in order from top to bottom. And then we usually give you guys a couple of sleepers. In this episode, what we did was we ranked 1 through 4. And we have 2 guys who are not sleepers, but we thought deserve to be top 5. So we split them up. So we're going to go over 6 players, and we might mention a few others at the end, but 6 guys that we did film review on. But we're going to start at the top. And just like with every other position, we not only give you guys a rundown on the player, but we actually give you our what we saw with our eyes and our scouting report. We actually have our grading system for them, and we'll get to the grading system for cornerbacks. And again, it's based a lot off of the Bill Walsh scouting guide in terms of the things to look for. And I think a lot of it is intuitive when you watch DBs. But let's start at the top. That in our mind, I think our unanimous CB1 of this class of the upcoming cornerback class of the 2025 draft is cornerback Will Johnson from Michigan. 6'2", 202 pounds, was a 4-star recruit out of Detroit. He's a junior. He's a true junior. He was a first-team All-American and a defensive MVP national champion last year. He had pretty solid PFF scores. We do mention that a lot. 82.5 overall PFF grade, 70.8 against the run, 68.2 tackle, and 83.3 coverage grade. He had 12.5% missed tackle percentage, which is right down the middle. It's fairly solid. A few miscellaneous facts. His father played at Michigan and won 3 Big Ten championships. He was on Feldman's freak list. He was number 28 on the list. He had the famous 3-cone studded performance at Michigan. Everybody in Michigan breaks the world record for 3-cone drills every single year. Somehow it happens right before the season. But very agile player, very fast, very bendy. He had incredibly solid overall testing times pre-season. He ran a 405 20-yard shuttle. That would have been the third fastest for the past 2 combines. So, this is a big, tall, like fast athlete. When you watch him, if you guys haven't seen him yet, I mean, you should probably see. He's definitely not Cordell Flotty kid. When you see him on tape, what stands out are several things. Elite, and I mean elite top end speed. This guy has a second, third, fourth, and a fifth gear. Despite that, the guy plays with a ridiculous motor. His effort is through the roof. Despite being a freak talent that's well more athletic and talented than everybody he faces, he plays at top gear all the time. He's an amazingly good tackler. He plays a physical brand of football. He plays well in face. He plays well out of face. He can suffocate wide receivers at the catch point. He uses his length. He battled the top receivers in college. I mean, he had an absolute epic battle with Marvin Harrison Jr. last year. Just natural feel for coverage. He's fluid. He can stay with the receivers, keeps his eye on the quarterback and the wide receiver simultaneously. It's a very rare trait you see with these guys, where they're carrying the receiver and they got their eyes on the quarterback to know when to break on the ball. And at the catch point, the guy has phenomenally good ball skills. If you want to go over a couple of negatives, there's not a lot, but he lost some reps to Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Happens.
It does happen.
He beat him, but it's Marvin Harrison.
And I think you and I noticed that this was something we saw both. I went back and looked at the 23 and the 24 tape, 2 different defensive coordinators. He plays with a lot of space in front of him. Like he plays off man, like 12 to 15 yards off the ball, very
especially
frequently.
now.
Yeah, I think Wink has him playing that. I don't know. Here's the thing. It's pretty eye-opening when you watch it on the coach's film, like how far off the line of scrimmage he plays. You got to wonder, and I started thinking, like, why would you do this? I'm thinking the coaches did this because they feel his click and close is so elite that they could do this with him. And I really feel like they're trying to take advantage of it. Maybe even bait people to throw. But the bottom line with this guy is, he's the total package.
Yeah.
of a cornerback. This guy is just a phenom. We're talking top 5 pick phenom. And I've talked to people about him, and you and I have discussed this. Like the the comp for this guy, and you're going to hear this over and over again, but it is so obvious. He is, I would say, a faster version of Patrick Surtain.
Yeah,
Um,
I can definitely see that.
that's what I keep seeing when I watch him play. But I went through a lot of his stuff. But tell me, when you watch Will Johnson, Monty, what did you think, and what's your breakdown of the player?
It's funny that the exact player popped into my head one day, and I think part of the reason it popped in my head was because when I watched Patrick Surtain in college, he was a guy who was great size and good at everything, but he wasn't necessarily somebody who was an elite player in one specific area. He was elite because he was so good everywhere. And that's what
Mhm.
I see when I watch Will Johnson. He truly does not have a weak part of his game, which is so rare for these corners. You see, cornerback is a position where you can go to the NFL and not be the best tackler. You cannot be the best zone guy. You cannot be the best man guy. And you're gonna find a place in this league without being great at everything. That's just how it works. There's different schemes, different ways to place corner. That's not the case with Will Johnson. Will Johnson will fit any scheme he gets drafted into. He is great instincts to play zone. He always has an eye on the wide receiver, always an eye on the quarterback, and it seems like he always knows where to be on the field to make a play. He can also, man a guy up and go and carry a guy downfield. He has good enough quickness to mirror a guy, even though they don't ask him to do a ton of that. And play press man to man. And I think one of my favorite parts about him is this is just a very physical football player. He plays with a ton of attitude and it plays with so much effort. And he is a guy who is going to thrive in the run game. He is a guy who is so clean there and is a very good tackler and shows so much effort. So um I'm a big fan of Will Johnson. It's strange that he didn't like we're gonna go over the grades, but he didn't I personally didn't give him a 5 anywhere, but was still in love with him just because of, the cornerback position. But,
I gave him a 5 in one place. But I was with you for the most part in your grading. Yeah.
yeah, um, we can go over it, but, yeah, well, why don't we do that?
Let's jump into the grades. As you guys know, we're trying to come up with a formal grading process to make it a little more objective. The categories we came up with, again, based off the Bill Walsh scouting guide, which we're using as our reference point for pretty much every position we're doing. And for those who haven't read it, the Bill Walsh, like scouting guide for how I scout every position is really, I mean, that's just like the Bible of what to look for and to understand what one of the greatest, if not the greatest coach in NFL history, viewed as the important features of every position. It really helps you kind of understand what coaches are looking for. And it really helped us crystallize what we're looking for. So the categories that we came up with based off that and based off what we ourselves felt were important things were use of length, so wingspan, height, arm length, how they use it, more than just the measurables, how they use that length, speed and quickness, fluidity, ball skills, physicality, and run support. So those were our 6 scoreable grades that we're going to average out, and then our the 3 grades we're giving that are not in our actual average are confidence, which I think is very important for a cornerback to play at the NFL level, a Giants grade, which we give everybody, and the Goon grade, which you guys should know by now, the sociopathic grade. So
Hmm.
um, let's go through this. So we'll go. How about we go? You want to go your scores, or do you want? Let's just do category by category. Use of length. We both gave him a 4, and so just to remind everybody, the scoring system is 1 is not an NFLer, 2 is basically performs at a below average NFL level, 3 is an average NFL starter performance grade, 4 is an above average NFL performance grade, and 5 is like an all Pro Bowl level grade for individual characteristics. So use of length, we both give him a 4, above average. Um, your thoughts on that, Monty?
Yeah, I mean, to me, when I see this, it's guys who can play to their size or play bigger than they are. And I think Will Johnson is both of those. I think, he has a great frame and he plays to it, but he can, he looks 6'4" out there at times when he's playing football.
I agree. He just knows how to use his arm length, and
Hmm.
you'll see it when you watch him. Speed and quickness, we both gave him a 4. I think this is sort of, it goes without saying, he's a very fast athlete. He's
Yes.
explosive, he's quick, and he's fast, and he uses it very well on the field. Um,
I
Fluidity. Go ahead.
the only reason I gave him a little bit of a knock because he's a great athlete. I felt like he had some struggles occasionally. Taking a guy inside, and I did feel that part. Yet to be honest with you, Marvin Harrison toasting him deep, just hard to give him a 5 because you can see the next best thing as an athlete.
It's hard to get a 5.
Yeah,
I mean, you're talking about a guy who you're saying is performing at an all-pro type level
yeah,
already. That's tough in college. Fluidity. You gave him a 4. I gave him a 5 here. So I'll tell you why I gave him a 5.
yeah. Please.
It was just the versatility of what he showed in the middle of reps. So there were so many reps where he would start in just man coverage, and he would carry receivers, flip his hips as they run the route for them half the time, and then you would see on the same play, like if there's a run play or a screen to the other side, how quickly he was able to change direction and get to the other side of the field. Um, he has almost no wasted motion. It's almost like a wide receiver who's
Mhm.
twitchy, right? And I thought that he uses fluidity very well. I know that's not how we typically talk about it. We talk about oily hips and things like that. And he has that. Like he absolutely has that at a high level. The reason I gave him a 5 though, because he actually uses it in both coverage as well as in run support. I thought that was a high level usage of his athleticism and his general flexibility.
Yeah, I knew that you would have something that you were thinking this different than me with that, or could give him a 5 because the only reason I gave him 4, and I kind of had that in my back of my head that I gave him a 5 for something along the reason because he looks very smooth when he plays the game, so I understand from that point. The reason I didn't give him a 5 is because I don't see him as like an elite mirror type cornerback who can just like flip his hips and like mirror you every single way you go. He's not that type of corner.
Are you saying that because you didn't see it or you don't think he can do it? Because I think those are 2 different things based on the way he was used or has been used so far.
I think that when I did see it, it didn't look elite to me. It looked high end, but it didn't look elite to me.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. I think you're gonna get to see it more. I think Wink is eventually gonna deploy him
Hopefully,
in press man, hopefully, yeah, in a lot more, like, press man situations, and you're gonna see him flip his hips and get to see him, show it, but I'm
there there's
projecting a little.
one there's one guy on here I gave a 5 to, so we'll talk to it when we get
We'll
there.
get there in a second. Yep.
Yeah.
Ball skills, we both give him a 4. I think that kind of goes without saying. He's very competitive at the catch point. He has a lot of pass breakups. He has a knack for getting interceptions.
You had a pick six last year. He has a pick six this year.
Physicality, we both gave him a 4. Very physical football
Very
player, both
physical.
in coverage and in run support. And
I
run support,
consider
we gave him a
giving him a
4.
5 here. I
Yeah,
consider it.
run support. I initially had him at 3, and you were like, "Are you sure?" And I went back and I watched him. We're like, "All right, you're right.
Mhm.
He's a 4." Um, Confidence, we both gave him a 4. We could have given him a 5 here. Giants grade, we both gave him a 5. This guy's perfect.
Mhm.
And Gooden grade, we both gave him a 4. He's not a complete sociopath, but he plays with enough motor and anger and speed that it qualifies. So
Yeah, I mean,
overall, yeah.
as far as the Giants grade, he'd be a 5. Like I said, we've said this before for I think it was maybe it was Mason Graham. You said for me it was Genty. I can't remember. He's a 5 for anybody who needs a corner. Like he literally fits anybody. He'd be perfect for almost any scheme.
Yep. So overall, I have him a 4 at a overall score of 4.2. You have him at a 4. He's our top ranked corner. We're
Yep.
both basically saying that today he's an above average NFL cornerback
Yep.
today.
Step on the field
And
today.
this is a true junior just beginning his junior year. I mean, a year from now, I think you're looking at a much finer prospect. So,
And most of the tape we watch was from his sophomore year.
yep. All right. As per usual, we're going to probably disappoint some people today with how we are loading
Every
out
year.
this every episode. Remember,
Yeah,
we're grading
right.
it. We grade it, and we're ranking them based on how our scores fell. So, number 2 on our list, Monty. Why don't you introduce number 2?
Sure. So number two, was somebody we were both fans of, and if watched our Freak List episode, you'll know who this guy is. It's Savone Ravel Jr., cornerback out of Eastern Carolina University, 6'3", 190 pounds. He was a three-star JUCO recruit. He's a fifth-year senior. He was a second team All American Athletic Conference last year. Um, PFF score 81.5, 78.7 run defense, 82.6 tackle grade, 52.1 pass rush, 84.7 coverage, and only a 5% missed tackle percentage. 2023, he had 54 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 1 interception, 13 passes defended, and 1 touchdown. This guy, Ravel, was on the freak list. He was 35th on Feldman's freak list. He runs somewhere between a 4.3 and a 4.4. He broad jumps 11 feet, which is 93rd percentile for cornerbacks. He was a track and field standout. He logged a 6.9 indoor time in the 55 meter, among other great times in the 300, the long jump, and the high jump. Just an all-around great athlete. But as far as outside of, I read off those stats, he is more than just an athlete. He's more than just, a height speed guy. That's, something we had a little bit of an idea on when we introduced him on the freak list. But, we finally got a chance to look into him. And he's number 2 on this list, guy. I mean, Eastern Carolina University. This is giving us some Quinshawn Mitchell vibes where, he started out a small school, but he might raise up pretty high. I mean, they're very different players, but but man, he is a stud. He is built in a lab to be a press man corner. I mean, you can tell that by his speed and his size. If we still had Wink Martindale, this guy would be salivating over the idea of drafting this guy. If this was last year, we'd be like, this guy is a giant. He's a giant. And he still might be, but he is perfect for a press man defense. His great length, speed. And he has like a mindset to play an island. This guy, he's a real ass goon. His athleticism pops on tape. The one thing I'll say is he needs to add a little bit of weight to his frame. I think I saw him, not be able to be quite as effective as he wanted to be in the run game at times, and sometimes not be as effective as you want to be as like a press man corner. He's still very good in those areas and he uses his length well, but I don't know how well that will translate to the NFL if he doesn't add a little bit more weight to his frame. And the other thing I'll say is this is a 5th-year senior from a small school. That makes this evaluation a little bit more difficult. But I really, really liked him as a football player. Why don't you go into some of the things you specifically liked about him, Sal?
I'm not surprised you like him. You were the first guy on that Quinyon Mitchell train,
Yeah.
well before it became popular last year. He really is Quinyon Mitchell, like in every way. This guy, like in terms of how we're evaluating a small school prospect who has elite measurables, elite speed, and you look at how he grades out, and you're like, who is this guy? And then you watch the tape, and you're like, oh, I see it.
Yeah.
Like I see it. He's got that right now. I will say this: he's a far more aggressive and physical player than Mitchell was at this point last year. I think Mitchell was
Yeah.
Mitchell, as much as he should have been a physical specimen, he was a more finesse player than you would expect for a guy of his profile, right?
It was the defense that he played in. They really let Revel like do his thing. While you didn't really see it from Mitchell until the Senior Bowl, then he really let loose.
Yeah, I absolutely. We're talking about Savon Ravel Jr. from ECU right now, the cornerback. He's our number 2 cornerback for the person who's asking. But no, I mean, you said it all. He's in press and he's dominant. I mean, he's playing smaller schools, but he's absolutely erasing guys in press. He's jamming them at the line. They're done. He's staying with them, and this guy has elite speed. I mean, he can run with anybody, and the testing numbers show it. He's quick. He's explosive. He's fast. I'm sure his measurables are going to come in insane, like when they do his arm length, because it looks like he just erases guys physically from the screen. I mean, this is the prototype, right? This is the Tariq Woolen, Quinyon Mitchell. Like, this is that guy.
Yep.
And the question is going to be, how is he going to perform when he faces better competition, which is probably not going to happen until the Senior Bowl, to be honest. Like if he has another good year at ECU, people are going to say, hey, I want to see what this guy does in the Senior Bowl. That's where Quinyon Mitchell erased people. And then all of a sudden it was like, okay, this is real. This is a first round talent. I think the same thing will happen with Ravel, but just in terms of pure play as a cornerback, without taking into account the factor of who he's playing, what we see on tape, I would agree that this guy was the second best corner I watched, in terms of not just ability, but projectability.
Yep.
I think that's a big part of why he came out ahead of the next guy.
And one thing I'll say is I'm sure a lot of you are sitting there like, yeah, but who did you watch this guy against? And I'll say one of the games, I'm sure you probably watched this too because it was the one that stood out. He played Michigan, and we had tape on that, and I checked out that game. And first of all, he got tasked a lot with covering the tight ends at Michigan, Loveland being a big target for JJ McCarthy, and that he got a chance to use it. They used him because he has the size and the aggressiveness to go up against guys like Loveland. And who Ravel reminds me of at times, like just from a profile, is he reminds me a little bit of watching just like his play. It reminds me a little bit when I watched Deontay Banks at Michigan, because this
Yeah.
is or not Michigan, sorry, Maryland, because he's a guy who's very good in press man and can mirror these guys. But when he drops back and plays zone, it looks really natural to him, and he uses his length and his ball skills to kind of make plays in the ball. There was one where a play he drifted kind of out, and JJ tried to fit a ball in. He moved back, used his extreme length, and knocked it down. It was probably supposed to go like 6 yards behind him. He started about 10 yards away, and he still was able to get his hand in there. I think he's a guy who, although he was built for a press man, and that's really his natural fit, I think he is a guy who, with time will be very successful also running in a zone coverage. I think shows a lot of potential there.
I agree. All right, let's get to our scoring then. Let me just pull this guy up here. Um, so same system. Um, we already gave you our comp. So use of length, we both gave him a 4. I think you described that well. He uses his length to take away balls at the catch point, and he's 6'3". He's a big eraser.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's you can't just when you watch it on coaches film, guys like him who have that kind of size and length, like quarterbacks don't even throw at them because you look over to that side of the field, they probably can't even see the receiver. They just block vision. So it's very good use of length when you can run like him and cover like him with that size. Speed and quickness, we both gave him a 4. I think you could have given him a 5.
I agree. It's on the
Uh,
edge.
it's right there on the edge. It was closer to 5 than just a 3. Put it that way.
Agreed.
Fluidity, I think we both gave him a 4.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you could have given him a 5 here because he is pretty oily, but I wasn't quite there yet. Ball skills, we both gave him a 4. Physicality, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. And run support, we both gave him a 3. So the only place we differ is in physicality. So let me say why I gave him a 4.
Sure.
I can see why you would give him a 3. I think there was a little more finesse to his game than anger and aggression to his game. I totally understand that. But he's so naturally explosive that even if he's not trying to like destroy you, he can destroy you.
Mm-hmm.
In the run game, at the catch point. So I just think his floor is so high as a physical player just because of his specimen type that I have to give him at least a 4 because I don't see how this guy's not a physical player at the NFL. But what was the reason you gave him a 3?
So I thought his play style was very physical. I thought he was a guy who, when you watch the tape, he was physical, but I felt he was, a little bit light. I mentioned that was kind of like I didn't have a lot of complaints about this guy, but he was a little skinny. I felt like, he got pushed around occasionally when pressman coverage. I felt like he wasn't able to have the impact he wanted to have sometimes in the run game. So although like I wanted like the tape to me said 4, I felt like some of those concerns that I had at times with his weight kind of just had me knock him down a little bit.
He also, I mean, he's an interesting 6'3", right? Like some of these guys who are this big, it's not in their favor, right? I mean, it affects their fluidity and their speed. Their cut and where how high hip they are. Like it does affect him. It doesn't. He's very proportional. Like when you look at his body type, and
Mhm.
I think he has room to tack on another 10, 15 pounds pretty easily
He
without it
he
really even affecting his speed.
he looks good out there. Like, he
Yeah.
looks like his frame looks good. He can definitely add something onto it.
Yep. So he's number two, and the other grades we gave him, our overall grade. You had him at a 3.66. I am a 3.8. So basically, we're both grading him as above average NFL cornerback today, basically. And and I think his trajectory might be the highest of anybody in this class, to be honest, in terms of like projection. His physical traits are maybe not as high as Will Johnson, but he's on par. Like this is a specimen. Um, Confidence, we both gave him a 4. Giants graded, we both gave him a 4. And the Goon grade, you gave him a 4, I gave him a 5. Again, I just like the way he plays football.
I
You know,
I get it. I saw him get into that fight. I know I got that 5.
yeah, he got into a fight. He wants to fight people on the. I mean, I
5
don't
is a
know.
fight. A fight is a
If
5.
you're throwing punches from the cornerback position, you get a 5 on the Goon grade.
I thought about it. Again, it's probably
Yeah.
just the size thing for me.
All right, so he's number 2. Maybe it's a bit of a reach for some people, but I think Felt. I mean, Brugler had him 12 overall. I don't think it's that much of a reach. So I think his stock could rise. Let's go to number 3. Let me
Yeah.
pull
No,
him up here.
I don't think it's gonna be a reach when things are said and done.
No, I can totally see that. So number 3, and I want to say this: we're grading purely cornerback play. That's what we're doing right now. It's not to say where we think people are going to necessarily get drafted on the overall board or overall athletes. We're just talking about corners. I don't know why that's happening on my screen. There were balloons flying for no reason. I don't know what I just did. I just shoot if I do this, or I don't know what I did.
Oh,
But
no.
like, um, it's a number 3 on
Yeah,
our
I love
list.
that.
Number 3 on our list. Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from the University of Notre Dame, 6 feet tall, 190 pounds, 4-star recruit, junior, was a freshman All-American, a Thorpe Award finalist, preseason All-American, had a 77.9 overall PFF grade with a 54 run defense grade, a 57 tackling grade, not great, but an 83.5 coverage grade. He had 33 last year. He had 31 tackles, 4 tackles for a loss, 3 interceptions, and 10 pass deflections. The year before that, he had 6 interceptions and 4 pass deflections. Very productive player as a defensive back. Pros, very sticky in coverage. I mean, just glue on people. Elite
Yep.
quickness in the short area. I mean, his play recognition and his ability to quickly diagnose plays at the snap and get to where he needs to go to take away a play are top notch, probably the best in this class. Mirrors very well, has very fluid hips. But the most important, and I think the most impressive thing about Morrison, which stands out, is this guy is an absolute technician. He's well coached. He knows what he's doing out there. Extremely high football IQ. And that's what stands out on every play. I don't think he's the most elite athlete in the world, but it doesn't matter because of the way he plays and how smart he is out there. There are some cons, his frame, he can sometimes get washed by blocks. I
Mhm.
think there are times because of the same thing, play strength, he can struggle a little bit in press at times, depending on the size and strength of the receiver he's facing. He's a little handsy. He has, and I think I added this, he has good but not elite long speed, which I saw. Like, I think he doesn't have that extra gear that Will Johnson does. And we're talking about like comparing him to like an
Yeah.
elite prospect, right? So this is not a criticism, it's a comparison. Um, and I don't think there's anything explosive about Benjamin Morrison when you're talking about athletic testing and athletic profile. But overall, um, you know, to me, 1T here, Notre Dame guy saying he's clamps and he eliminates guys. And I agree. And I was trying to think about like what's a comp for a guy who's just a technician, who's like a really good athlete, but maybe not an elite athlete, who's a technician that just takes away receivers, right? And he just makes it impossible for quarterbacks to want to even look that way. And it's a reach, but the one guy who did this better than anybody as a technician was Darrell Revis. And
Hmm.
I'm not saying he's Darrell Revis. Shout out to Mace because Mace was like, "What about Revis?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not a bad one." Um,
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's Darrell Revis, but what I'm saying is he plays like Darrell Revis, like that style where his job is to get on an island and erase that side of the field, and he does it like an absolute surgeon. It doesn't matter that he's not the fastest guy in the field. It doesn't matter that he's not the strongest guy in the field. He knows what he's doing out there. He'll run routes for guys, and he just erases it. And he makes quarterbacks not want to go there. He really makes it so that quarterback just doesn't want to go to that side of the field, which is that is like the most important part about being a cornerback, right? Just take away that side of the field. So that's my take on him. Even though he's number 3 on our list, I couldn't help but think to myself, there's a little bit of Darrell Revis in this guy's game. So tell me about what you think about this guy.
Yeah. I mean, I loved what I saw from this guy. I mean, he's the guy again who I could see playing really in a man or a zone scheme, but I really feel like man is where he is strongest because his ability to mirror wide receivers is so impressive. And he is able to mirror these wide receivers and stay with them and go wherever they go, but also keep an eye on the football and locate it every single time. Like you said, like Monty said, they don't even really try this guy anymore. But there's a reason for that because when they did try him, it was a problem.
He takes the
He
ball away. Yeah.
he got 6 interceptions in his freshman in his true freshman year. And then last year he added another 3 interceptions and then got 10 passes defended. So like and that's for a guy who doesn't get targeted very often. And I think he's gonna get targeted even less this year. I mean, this is a guy who only has 1 pass defended and no interceptions on this year. I think you're gonna see a change in those numbers because he is a guy that you don't want to try because he absolutely suffocates these guys and then will make you pay for even trying him. He is a guy who has really good football IQ, who can bait these quarterbacks into throwing his way and make a play on the ball. He he is a I would say a willing tackler. That's probably the best way to phrase it. But you kind of mentioned like his size can be an issue at times with him. He's a little bit skinnier of a player. And that can get again kind of like we talked last time. It can be an issue sometimes against bigger guys in press coverage, but also just I saw him at times not being able to fight off blocks in the run game and to get to it. You saw so much effort. He fights getting off run game just like he's fighting as a cornerback in coverage, but it's hard for him to get through at times. But he is a fantastic football player. He's one of the more fun and easier cornerbacks to scout because, when you watch a guy who can just absolutely, you know, man up a guy, mirror him everywhere he goes and erase it. That's like the easiest scouting you can do on a corner because there's no, it doesn't get any simpler than that. You put 1-on-1, I'm gonna fucking beat you, and it's like, all right, this guy is good at his job, and it's also the most fun to watch. So I thoroughly enjoyed watching Benjamin Morrison, and he's a fantastic football player.
Yeah, I mean, I would not be sad if we drafted Benjamin Morrison at all because I feel like he just takes guys away, like you said. And I can't. I know it's crazy. I cannot shake the Revis thing from my head. Like watching him, I know it's an insane thing to keep saying, but like watching cornerbacks who just erase people like that is really remarkable. If you want something, I guess, more pragmatic or practical, maybe like a Jair Alexander, you know.
Yeah.
But I can see that style. But he's taller than him. He has more length, and he uses that length better than Alexander did in college.
Hmm.
So I really feel like there's more there. In any case, let's get to the scoring system for this guy. Um, so use of length, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. I'm guessing you did this because he doesn't have the natural length that some of these other guys do. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think with him, I just didn't see anything that was like spectacular to me with him using his length. I thought it was good, just didn't see anything that kind of like jumped off the page to me.
Yeah, and to me, it was more about how he utilized his hands at the catch point.
Hmm.
And
That's fair.
he's a PBU machine. You know, if they actually test him, like he knows how to use every inch of his frame to get in the way of the receiver and the ball. And I feel like that's why I gave him a 4. I thought that was
Yeah,
an advanced skill. Speed and quickness, we both gave him a 4. I think that's pretty obvious on film. He's not slow. I don't think he's going to run a 4.3.1, but is he gonna be in the 4.3s? I would say probably. Like, he'll probably be in the mid to high 4.3s.
I don't know if I'm there with him. I think he's a very quick player. I think he's a guy who's going to run the shuttles well. If he runs it, he's going to run the three cone well. I don't know if I'm there with him as far as like 4.3s.
Did
Maybe,
did
may
did you think Max Melton was gonna run a 4.35 or
that
whatever he ran?
that's
You know,
fair. That's
I mean,
fair.
it's just some of these guys are faster than we realize because of play style and stuff, but we'll see. I mean, I put it this way, it was definitely a plus for him and not a negative.
Yeah.
Um, Fluidity, we both gave him a 5. This, yeah, flips his hips with ease and runs with anybody, changes direction beautifully. Like he
And
just, yeah.
yeah,
But
and that's what I alluded to with Will Johnson. Like I just didn't quite see like this level of fluidity like from like that standpoint.
ball skills, both gave him a 4. I think that kind of goes along with the lens stuff. We talked about the PBUs and the interceptions.
Yeah, this could be a 5, to be honest with you, but, I
Closer to
didn't watch
5 than 3.
I
Yeah.
didn't watch his freshman year tape. If I watched his freshman year tape, maybe I'd feel differently.
Yeah, we're basing this off mostly his 2023 tape where he
Yeah.
wasn't challenged as much. So, it's hard to give a 5 if you don't get a lot of challenges come your way. Um, Physicality. This is where maybe you could argue he's a little bit weaker. You gave him a 2. I gave him a 3. I
Mhm.
thought he was average. Why did you give him a lower score?
I felt that he was getting, like, just could not get off his guy when he was trying to tackle. I felt like he's a good tackler. I don't have any issue with his tackling. I just felt like he really got dominated, trying to shed blockers and whatnot. I don't feel like he is an average run defender in the NFL. I feel like he is probably a below average run defender in the NFL.
Okay. And I think that goes to run support. We both gave him 3, like average run scores. I think he's about I think he is projectable to be an average run defender. Like this is not a Devin Witherspoon type guy, but I think he's more than adequate. I'll put it that way for what he already offers on the field.
Oh yeah, sorry. Hey, I messed that up. But yeah, I mean, I think that's part of it. I think yeah, with physicality, it was just yeah,
It seeps into it.
yeah, they
Um,
kind of over that, and then the little bit of his issues in coverage. Yeah, because yeah, I think I gave him 3 in run support because he's such a good tackler when he gets there, and I decided to knock him in physicality instead because his issue to get there is really was his problem.
Confidence, we both gave him a 4. I think he plays like a confident DB. Giants grade, we both gave him a 4, although I think we could easily give him a 5 here. I think he fits us very nicely. And a
Hmm.
goon grade, we both gave him a 3. Oh, he doesn't play like a sociopath, but and this is the one instance where his goon grade not being a 5 is a testament to who he is.
Yeah, he plays
He's
very under control.
very controlled as a player. No mistakes out there. He's like Iceman out there.
Hmm.
And I think the guy's spectacular. I gave him a 3.8 overall grade. You gave him a 3.5. But basically, we both feel he's an above average NFL player right now and probably trending in the direction of somebody who could become like a future Pro Bowler. I think he's in that direction.
Yep, agreed.
All right. So he's number 3 on our list. Um, let's go to number 4. You want to introduce the next person?
Sure. So with just catching up on where we went, Sal and I both had Will Johnson as our clear number one. Chavone and Morrison. Sal had tied. I had Chavone a little bit ahead. Now Morrison, I have tied with this guy. Sal had a little bit lower, so we'll go into it, and that's kind of where it falls into it. I had this guy about the same tier. This is not a situation where this guy's about to go late because we hate him, dislike him, kind of like the last couple. But he did fall a little bit further, and I think a lot of people expected, and that's Travis Hunter, cornerback slash wide receiver out of the University of Colorado. 6'1", 185 pounds. He was a unanimous 5-star recruit, transfer from Jackson State with Deion Sanders. He is a true junior. Last year, PFF grades were fine: 78.4, 70 PFF, 71.7 run defense, 74.9 tackle, and a 74.7 coverage. And then his stats in 2023, he had 30 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, 3 interceptions, and 5 passes defended. So here's the thing. He is a very, very intriguing prospect. I think we all see that. I mean, he might be the best player in all of college football for what he does at both the wide receiver position and the cornerback position. Extremely impressive. And this guy's potential is through the roof. He's a long athletic player, and his ball skills, you can see it when he's on offense, is very, very special. And then on the defensive side, he does a really good job in playing press man corner. They have him do a lot. He stays in phase, and he kind of plays the position like a wide receiver. He knows how the guys are going to run these routes, and he runs it for them. He shows a lot of intelligence for the game. I think a lot of that comes from learning underneath Deion Sanders. A lot of that has come from playing both sides of the ball and really kind of understanding what the offenses want to do to him, or defenses want to do him, and the offense want to do on both sides of the ball. He has a good feel for his own coverage as well. I thought he had really, really good closing speed. But one of my main concerns, weirdly enough, with Hunter is, despite how strong his hands are as a wide receiver, despite what good he is at concentration, like on offense, I saw him get dominated at the point of the catch on multiple occasions on tape. One of the biggest ones I know we both watched was him going up against Arizona last year.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Yeah, they have McMillan, who is T-Mac, one of the best wide receivers, and we'll talk to him about him when we get to the wide receiver episode. Big guy, and he ate Travis Hunter's lunch. Like, be completely honest, he destroyed him at the point of the catch, and he did a good job of always being there. And T-Mac is not doesn't separate the most in the world, and Travis Hunter is a guy who's always there, but that's an issue. And you could look at this in a way that Travis Hunter is so good on offense that if his number one issue is something that you've seen him show on offense, he just needs to learn how to translate that over the defensive side of the ball, then this guy can be a really special player. The only other thing I say is he is not the best run defender, and I felt like there was a lack of effort there at times, but he plays a lot of fucking snaps, so maybe that has a lot to do with it too. But why don't you talk this out? And I talked a lot about it. Why don't you give some of your thoughts on Travis Hunter, Sal?
Yeah, I think what you said there at the end kind of encapsulates why he is fourth on our list when he potentially should be number one on our list, or number two at least. I mean, there's no doubt that when you're watching Travis Hunter, who was the top recruit in the country, period, when he declared from high school, you're watching a special athlete. And you see it every week. He does things that nobody else in college football can do physically and athletically. A very gifted young man. And you see the flashes, both as a cornerback and as a receiver. But for this purpose, we'll stick to cornerback, obviously. You see what he can do. And he can run the route, as you said, for receivers. He's a receiver. He understands route concepts because he runs them. So he can run it for them. He can mirror them. He can beat receivers to where the ball's going because he's just better than them. He's faster than them. And he's more gifted athletically, and he has great hands. And he's strong and physical, and he plays a lot bigger than his actual size. But he starts games better than he finishes them. And I think that's a consistent theme I saw in when watching his games. Like, he started well and started strong and active, and he ended up softer at the end of games. And in my book, and I feel like this is a direct result of just getting too many reps. The kid looks gassed at the second half of games. He looks like he cannot keep up with the most physical and fastest receivers towards the end of games. I think a lot of his mistakes and his fall off in play comes in. I'm not saying he's perfect the rest of the game, but I really feel like he's suffering as a prospect, as a cornerback, because of the reps he's taking on offense. and he's suffering in his development as a wide receiver because he's always on the field as a cornerback. He's a jack of all trades right now, and he's really not a master of any. And that's my concern with him. Now, like you said, he's a freak. He's just an all-around football player, and he's gonna go almost certainly top 10, probably top 5, in this class. Somebody's gonna want this kid bad enough to take him. But it's going to be intriguing who wants him and how they want him and what he wants to do, because that's going to play into his draft value. He's clearly going to play both positions again this year. I don't think it's in his best interest, but that's going to happen. And he needs to develop a lot. He needs to develop a lot of the technical aspects of being a cornerback. Let's just talk about cornerback. He needs to develop those things well. He wants to work towards being a guy like Benjamin Morrison, and he's a pretty far away prospect from Benjamin Morrison right now, and he's not going to get those reps. He's not going to get that time in the film room. He's not going to get that time one-on-one with the coaches because he's playing both sides. He's practicing both sides. So while he should be a better player, Monty, I don't think he's there right now, and I'm not sure when he's getting there if he continues to try to play both ends of this.
I agree with you. I think, there's a lot of work he needs to do to really become a great cornerback. And to be honest with you, some of the I mean, we'll go over. We haven't graded him as a wide receiver, but what I watch on Saturdays from him as a wide receiver, what I see these wide receivers get paid today in the NFL, I don't think he's going to put the time and effort in to be the cornerback that he can be, and I think he will probably should focus on playing wide receiver. But we'll get into that when we get to the wide receiver episode.
Yep, I think we talked about him well, and I think people talk about him as being the top of the class, as they should, as an overall player. But when you actually break him down by position, I think you guys are going to see him ranked lower than you would expect at both of these positions because of these technical things that matter in grading out players. So let's get to the grading. Use of length, we both gave him a 4. He knows how to use his frame very well, and I think you see that at the catch point. Speed and quickness, we both gave him a 4. He's an elite athlete, and he knows how to use quick speed and quickness. No problem there. He's already an above NFL average NFL player in both of these areas. Fluidity, we both gave him a 4. I think that's all of this is legit. Ball skills, we both gave him a 4 because when he gets his hands there, he's elite. He can take away the ball. But this is where I'm going to let you chime in. Give me the caveat here.
So this is the thing. I really gave him the ball skills because of kind of what I saw on offense and what I think he kind of has. I would have gave him probably a 3 based off of what I saw. I felt he got dominated at the point of the ball at the ball point a lot, and yeah, I kind of projecting a little bit here at the 4.
This is a 4 closer to a 3 than it is a 4 closer to a 5.
Yeah, I think I'm giving him benefit of the doubt here.
Yeah, I think there's projection here. Physicality, we both gave him a 3. As big as he plays, he's not as physical a player as you would expect when you watch his game tape. He gets washed in blocks. He gets taken out by receivers, and that's what I saw. I don't know what you saw there.
No, I saw that too. He is a guy who seems to get out physical a lot in the run game, and we'll get into that next in the next one here. I'm actually surprised we ended up with the same score in this, and it seems like we're both harsh on him in the run game here.
All right, we both gave him a 2, a below average grade in run support. He's not good in run support, and this is where I really feel like 2 things matter. One, I think run support's about coaching. It's about reps. It's about play recognition to develop those instincts. It's also about having burst, especially late in games. I think the guy's gassed. I think it's hard for him to help in run support because he's so focused on coverage, and that's all he's got in the tank. So I think this is where his grade suffers as a result of him playing both sides.
Yeah, he was just, to me, when I watched him, and it's funny, like, he didn't have any missed tackles in the game I watched. It's not that it was a tackling issue. It's just he was a total non-factor.
He doesn't get there.
He's in the wrong position. He's not there. He's getting washed. It's bad, man. He is a negative in the run game.
So I think the Arizona game is the one that exploits why this happens, because in that game he's covering Shatori McMillan, who is a specimen, right? He's top 3 receiver in this class. And McMillan's, what is he, like 6'4",
Yeah.
6'4", 200, something like that, right? And McMillan is absolutely dominating. I mean, just dominating him. But he's dominating him physically. He's blocking him. He's beating his jab, his jam at the line. He's mossing him. Like he's just out physicaling the guy. And it got worse as the game went on because McMillan's fresh, right? He's coming off the field, and Hunter's still on the field playing offense. And then he's going up against his physical specimen who's just bullying him later in the game. And I feel like a guy who's gassed like that and bullied, like he's got nothing left in the tank for run support or anything outside of coverage. So it hurts his grade. Overall, you gave him a 3.5. I gave him a 3.5. I think
Yep.
I think he's an above average NFL talent, but I don't think he's producing at like a really high above average NFL talent level at this position yet.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of potential there. But yeah, I don't think he's the elite cornerback like today
That
that
he,
people make him
that
out to be.
I think if he played only cornerback, he would easily be CB2 in this class at
Yeah.
minimum. At
I,
minimum.
agreed. Agreed.
Confidence, I gave him a 5. You gave him a 4. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
Giants grade, we both gave him a 4. I think that's just because he's an elite prospect. I do wonder about his fit, and I didn't give him a 5 for that reason. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
where he plays.
Yeah.
And a goon grade, you gave him a 3. I gave him a 4. You get at least a 4 if you throw punches. And so like
That's
at
fair.
least a 4. And so
That's
I
fair.
like that he plays with a chip on his shoulder and he has that kind of dog in him. I'm giving him a 4.
I might have a
And
cornerback bias because I'm usually pretty high in these grades.
quarterback throws punches, they get a 4, man.
That's
At
fair.
minimum. If you throw punches into another guy's helmet, you get a 5. So that's just the way it works. All right, so that's number 4. We have 2 more to go. So we split up the 5th position, and we decided to give you guys 2 guys here. So do you want to go first here? Or who did Hunter? Was that you? You did Hunter. I'll go first. So my guy, who is number 5, I've got to pull him up here. Give me a second. Where the hell is this guy?
He's right below my guy.
Sorry, guys. We have this huge file. All right. So my guy, let's call him 5A on the list, is a guy most of you have not heard of. Some of you have. Well, I know one of you definitely has. It's Mansour Delane, cornerback out of Virginia Tech, 6'1", 190-pound, 3-star recruit. Another outside boundary corner. I'm going to pull up his numbers for you guys. He had last year at Virginia Tech a 67.6 overall defensive grade, 71.6 in run defense. He had a 67.4 coverage grade and a 60.5 tackling grade. He played mostly on the outside. He had 484 reps as an outside corner, 57 in the slot. He did a little free safety too. You'd see him go into it, 56 reps as free safety, 103 in the box. So he was moved all around a lot. He had 1 interception and 1 PBU. Ball doesn't get thrown his way a ton. And it's interesting because he is part of maybe the best tandem in college football in terms of corners. His teammate on the other side almost made this list, Dorian Strong. We just barely missed it. So in any case, let's talk about Mansour Delane. So again, an outside corner. What I saw about him, Monty, I don't know if you got a chance to watch much of it at all, but he's very strong in press. He stands out. He plays in press. He's strong. He has good hands. He turns and runs really well. So I thought he was very fluid, strong at the jam, fluid, turns and runs well. He carried receivers through the full route tree, stuck to their hips in phase. He was very sticky in man coverage, very competitive at the catch point, used his length in his hands very well, and he showed a high end, top end speed. All the stuff I'm looking for in an outside boundary corner. There were some cons I found. I thought when he was not in press, especially when they played zone, he was weak. There were plenty of plays where they rotated him out in Virginia Tech. They would show man up front, then they'd rotate him to off man and then right into zone. And when he was not playing attached to the hip of the receiver, I thought he struggled. And because, when you're playing not with your back to the quarterback, but with your face to the quarterback, it's all about play recognition and being able to click and close quickly. I didn't think that was a strength of his. I didn't think they did him a lot of favors by putting him there. He really needs to work on that. It was about route recognition when he wasn't in phase. I thought he had a hard time diagnosing run plays, even though his PFF grade for run defense is good. I thought he was slow in diagnosing plays, and he was a little bit soft on shedding blocks. Didn't think he was a great tackler at all, and not as physical as I'd like when he's not playing on the ball, when he's not playing on the hip of the receiver. But overall, my take on Delane was this is a good press man scheme corner. He's a really good outside boundary corner if that's what you're using him for. He uses his length and his traits very well to disrupt the receiver at the catch point, and very competitive player. All the stuff you want in a boundary corner. I don't think he's great yet in off man and zone, although I think he could potentially get there in off man. But if you're running a press system, I think he's a good player. Um, Got to be a little bit better in diagnosing plays, but overall, guys like this who are, I think, good, reliable CB2 on the outside type guys. You see how valuable it is for the Giants. We could use one now, right? These are typically top 50 picks. So I gave him a day 2 grade as a top 50 pick. I don't know I guess you didn't really have a chance to grade him out yet, right?
No, I
Yeah.
didn't get a chance to
Yeah.
look at him. Kind of split these ones up, but he definitely
Yep.
sounds interesting to me.
I think take a look at it when you get a chance. I'll tell you my grading system for him. I liked his length and the way he used it. I gave him a 4 there. He got good speed. I didn't think he had elite speed, but good speed. So he got a
Mhm.
3. Fluidity, I gave him a 3. I could have given him a 4 here, but after watching these other guys, it was hard for me to give him a 4 because he came last and he wasn't quite as fluid as guys like Morrison and others. His ball skills were a 3, physicality was a 3, and run support was a 2. Overall score, he got a 3 from me. So I would grade him at currently, like if he came to the NFL today, I think he's an average starting CB2, which is good. That's
Yeah.
really valuable. Confidence, he plays with a chip on his shoulder. You got a 4. I think for a Giants grade, I gave him a 3 only because we don't need a CB2. I think we need a CB1, and we'll get to that
Yeah.
later. And a goon grade, I didn't think he was much of a goon, but I thought he was solid. I gave him a goon grade of 3. So overall, good outside boundary corner, probably a CB2 in the NFL, probably a top 50 pick, um, and just a kind of a reliable football player. But he's lacking in more of a zone system, lacking in more of off man. He's going to be a bit of a scheme fit guy. If you're playing a ton of press, I think he's a good corner.
Yeah, man. So yeah, it sounds interesting. I'll jump into my guy. And it's funny, we broke these guys up and I was asked you who you wanted to cover. And then you were like, I'll take this guy. And I was like, damn you. I have to take the guy from Kentucky
You
because
said Kentucky, and I was like, I'm not watching that shit again.
after we watched Andrew Phillips last year, and we so far very wrong about Andrew Phillips and Deion Walker, we're like, God, this defense stinks. I hate watching this defense. I'll tell you, dude, Maxwell Harrison, the exception. He is the exception to
All
our
right.
Kentucky defense. You got to watch this kid, especially for how much hate we've had watching this defense. So Maxwell Harrison, cornerback, 6'1", 186 pounds out of Kentucky. He was a 3-star recruit. Let's see, he is a true junior. And yeah, Maxwell Harrison was he's a Thorpe watch list guy this year. He was second team all SEC, but he is a really intriguing player and had a lot of production last year. He is a really good tackler, a really good tackler. He had 68 tackles last year for Kentucky. He had 5 interceptions and took 2 of them for touchdowns. He also had a forced fumble. It's funny when I remember when we went back and we watched Andrew Phillips. I said at the time, like, I think this guy is a guy who might be able to succeed in the man coverage, but I felt like he is totally out of place with how far, Kentucky's playing off the ball and he doesn't. Well, here's the thing. That fits Maxwell Harrison. Maxwell Harrison is a guy who I think will play very, very well in a zone defense in the NFL. He has some incredible instincts and just a clear high football IQ where you just watch him reading the quarterback's eyes the entire time he's in coverage, and you can watch him jump routes, and the cornerbacks don't even know that he's really there, but he knows and is ready to come off his guy to make a play. He is a super fluid athlete. Can really has like those oily hips and a great back pedal. He's like I say, he's 6'1", he's a long athlete, and he's just a really, really aggressive and good tackler in space. I mean, his nickname is Mad Max. He is a really good football player, and I do think he can play man. I think probably more of an off man would be the better spot for him, which granted fits well with us. We'll see if we have the same defensive coordinator last year, but a zone off man is probably the best. I think he probably needs to work on being more of a press man corner if they want him to do that. And I think that he has some issues with his long speed. Which, again, if you're asking to do press man, that could be an issue. But he's a really good football player. And I think if you find him in the right defense, I think he is a guy who can be a ball hawk and a really strong run defender. So, big fan of Maxwell Harrison. I'm going to obviously have to look into him a little bit more, but I also add I saw 5 interceptions. He also had 6 passes defended. So this guy is really good at just getting his hand on the ball. With the exception of our hate for that Kentucky defense, definitely have to check him out. I will say I didn't get a chance to grade him, but I'll just kind of go through it. Just these are not really official, but I was kind of my thoughts on them. Use of length, probably like a 4. I thought he used his length well, especially playing a at the point of the catch. His speed and quickness, I'd probably say 3. I think he lacks deep speed, and I don't he doesn't really play that like man up like press man coverage, so that's not really his game. But fluidity, I'd say he is probably a high 4. I think he's a 4. He's a very fluid athlete, very fluid in zone with great hips and great back pedal. Ball skills, I mean, again, probably like high, like a 4, like closer to 5 than a 3. Just high 4. Physicality, I'd honestly give him a 5 from what I saw. He's very, very physical football. Maybe a 4 because he's a little bit lighter, and a 5 in run support, something like that along those lines. Very confident player. I'd give again like 4. Giants grade, I mean, I have no idea what we will be running next year, but I would say he's a 5 for a Shane Bowen defense. I think he would be a really good fit. You get to team him up with his former teammate Andrew Phillips. That's another plus. So I'll say 5 for what we know right now. And yeah, I'll probably give him like a 4 goon grade. So yeah, really, really interesting player. I don't know what exactly that calculates up to, but
to 4. You gave him the second highest score of any player.
Okay, maybe I went a little high. That's why I don't do it off the cuff. But very good player.
Obviously, you like him, and that's what we
Yeah.
want to know. So that's awesome. I'm glad I got to watch this kid now. But that's our guys. It's our 6 guys. I know it's not the 7, but I think this is a strong class, like we mentioned at the top. This is a strong outside boundary cornerback class. I think the floor. We're talking about guys now. Middle of day 2. We're already in the middle of day 2 with some of these guys, right? And we're talking about starting outside corners, like strong starting outside corners in the middle of day 2. This is a strong class. That's not always the case, right? Usually your starting outside corners are gone by round 1. And I don't think these guys, because this is such a strong overall defensive class, these guys will probably last until the 2nd round, maybe the 3rd round. We'll see. There is one other guy I wanted to mention before we stop going over corners, and we didn't get a chance to go to him, but I think it would be wrong of me to let an entire episode of cornerbacks with you as my podcast partner go by without mentioning the Caucasian cornerback of the day. And I don't know if you've looked into this guy, but it is absolutely worth mentioning. The return of white CBU. It's white-ish. He's not really white, but he's Caucasian. And that is a guy, I don't know if you've seen him, but Sebastian Castro from Iowa. Have you watched him?
I haven't
Uh,
watched them, but I saw that they had another white corner.
Another Iowa white slot corner who is a mean motherfucker. Like they just keep producing these guys year after year after year. He's the next in line. Not that our guy Cooper DeJean was a slot corner, but he played a lot of nickel corner last year, mostly outside, but he's played over the years. Sebastian Castro played a ton of the nickel last year, though. While Cooper DeJean was mostly on the outside. And just listen to these numbers. I mean, he's about 5'11", 205. So he's got that frame of like a kind of a thick, not overly tall, like corner in the nickel. 91.2 overall defensive grade, 86.8 run defense grade, and a 91.2 coverage grade. The guy has, I mean, listen to these numbers. He had 36 stops, 2 forced fumbles, he only allowed 39 receptions on 72 targets, only 54% reception percentage out of the slot, which is very impressive because those are usually open receivers. Um, he had 3 interceptions and 7 PBUs in all the targets he faced. So he's a physical MFer. He's good at the catch point. He's a really good slot. Now we have Andrew Fuller, so his Giants grade is like a 2. We don't need
Mhm.
this guy right now because Andrew Phillips looks like he might be the guy, right, for the position. But if we were ever in the need for a slot corner or whoever is in the need, and I'm talking to you Colts fans who might be in our pod listening. I know who you are, and I know you want a corner. Check out Sebastian Castro from Iowa. This guy is a monster, and if you need a slot, he's awesome. I mean, he's really an excellent player. I mean, what else is there about Iowa but like physical corners who mess people up, right? Especially out of the slot.
There you go. Yeah, man. It's a really, really good cornerback class. I mean, there's a guy like we didn't even mention a guy like Denzel Burke. Like there's a lot
Yeah,
of
we didn't get to him. I mean, the guy would have been top. I mean, if he had declared, he might have been a top 5 cornerback last year. He was up there. He was in that territory, and we didn't even get to him. Um, yeah, it's an impressive class, man. It's a very good class, and I think for the Giants, I'd be surprised if they walked away from day 2 without finding a starting corner next year. I'd be very surprised if we went the first couple of picks even without a cornerback. But we'll see. That a lot of that's going to depend on who's running the show, the regime, what they're looking for, the quarterback decision. There's a lot that's going to go into it. But if you want a corner, this is the class to really grab one. All right,
definitely.
man. You want to head over to? You want to start talking about these games coming up?
Yeah, one last thing I want to say, again, we'll talk about this when we get to the wide receiver episode, but we hit on the freak list guys, but Travis Hunter also is on the freak list. We didn't talk about that. He was number 2 on the freak list. They didn't have a lot of numbers here, but from Real Analytics, who does kind of tracking of the game film, he had a max speed chasing down a touchdown saving tackle of 21.2 miles per hour, which is pretty great. And that was in the 81st snap of that game in a near 100-degree heat in Texas. So that's pretty damn
Mm.
impressive. He displayed a closing speed of 6.9 yards per second on his diving red zone interception against TCU midway through the third quarter. 16.9, the second fastest on record for nearly 8,400 defensive backs in Real Analytic database, which checks out. He had guy elite closing speed. You could tell that on tape. So I mean, he has a special talent for sure.
Kid's the real deal.
He's a
And
focus on something.
he's got to pick it. He's got to pick the job he wants.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for him. We'll see. I'm really everybody's gonna they're gonna want to watch to see what he chooses to do going into the draft. All right, let's talk about some of the upcoming games like we always do this week. A little bit of a better slate this week than last week. It was kind of a soft week last week, but the one that sticks out as like one of the best games is, well, let's go day by day. Friday night, there's actually a fun game that you guys may want to watch if you're not doing anything this Friday night. It's number 24 Illinois at number 22 Nebraska. That should be a good Midwestern showdown. 2 ranked
Definitely.
teams. Nebraska, Illinois has produced very good defenses year after year for the last few years. A lot of NFL players, and Nebraska has, star quarterback prospect Dylan Raiola. Going to be a good game to watch, and they put a beat down on Colorado a couple of weeks ago. They themselves have a top cornerback prospect in this draft class, so it'll be a fun game to watch. On Saturday, there's a bunch of interesting games, but like there's a couple of big ones. USC at Michigan is a big one. It's 3:30 Saturday,
Yeah.
that should be your afternoon game is watching USC Michigan. Watch a little bit of Miller Moss against whoever the hell Michigan is rolling out at quarterback. I guess it's Alex Orji now.
Alex Orji, yeah, but I mean, look, Michigan hasn't had the best defense this year, but we know they have studs. We've gone over a couple of them already, and they ranked really highly. Two of our highest ranked guys on here.
Yeah, a couple of other big games between ranked teams. Number 12 Utah is at Oklahoma State, which is the number 14 seed. That's a 4:00 game on Fox. Again, Utah is a very good football team, all around good football team. Oklahoma State has Ollie Gordon, the running back we previewed last week. But I think the biggest game of the week, without doubt, is number 6 Tennessee at number 15 Oklahoma. These are two powerhouse schools, both contenders to make the 12-team playoff. If you're into quarterbacks for the future,
yes, I was going to say that.
You gotta start watching Tennessee football games, folks. If you like future quarterbacks, for both of these teams, actually.
Not just Tennessee. Jackson Arnold too.
Jackson Arnold from Oklahoma is a big time recruit, just beginning to start this year, and Nico. I'll never get his name right. Yamyaleva, I think Yamyaleva at Tennessee is just. I mean, he's gonna get Trevor Lawrence comps.
I was just thinking, like he's got that frame too, that like 6'6" light frame, like
it's like a 6'6", 225, 230 kind of frame, and but just flicks the ball with ease all over the field. As elite arm talent, elite arm strength, can run the ball as a weapon. When using his legs. Really good feel for the game, can process. He's got the total package. I mean, he's got like a number 1 overall pick profile. We'll see how that class shakes. That's gonna be a good class, but that's a game to watch if you want to see like two quarterbacks that are not available this year that you may want access to in 26. You watch that game, you may not want the Giants to take a quarterback in 2025.
Yeah, not just because Arch.
Yeah, Arch is not the only one. There are a lot of really, really good quarterbacks who are going to be in that class. I'm not even so sure Arch is declaring in 25. I mean, I don't think he's going to play much this year. I think Quinn Ewers is okay. Once he's fine and he's playing fully, Arch is back on the bench, and he's probably not going to get much run, if any.
It would be a very Manning thing to play all 4 years. I mean, both Eli and Peyton did it.
Especially when you're only going to get 2 years of actual playing time, which is what Arch is staring at if he stays the full 4 years. So I don't think – it doesn't seem likely to me that Arch is going to play 1 year and declare.
I wouldn't put all your eggs into Arch is coming out in 2026 basket.
It's more like Arch in 2027, I think, is the better bet. If you want to wait till then, that's kind of have at it. But
be my guess.
Or you can solve the problem. Anyway, I don't know if you saw any other games on the list that were intriguing to you. Baylor at Colorado is always interesting. What else did you see?
North Carolina State versus Clemson, a good Carolina matchup. That's always a good game, just good college football.
Yeah. The night games, there's not a bunch. I mean, K-State at BYU is I guess kind of interesting. There's just not a lot going on in the evening on Saturday that looks really intriguing.
If you want to watch Cam Ward, I know a lot of people are big fans of him. He's playing South Florida at 7. Not a great matchup, but it's it's not you got half hour of that before the Tennessee Oklahoma game starts.
There you go. All right. I think with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you guys who have been here, the loyal listeners, the crowd that stuck through this. I know these episodes are tedious. Believe it or not, this is what we do, and these are our least viewed episodes, are like the prospect breakdowns. It's not something that people want to hear about in great detail, so we appreciate you guys who are here the whole time going through the in-depth review of these players in real time. And of course, we'll appreciate you guys as we get closer and closer to draft season. But with that's cornerbacks. That's done. Next week we're going back to offense. We have not decided on a position yet. But for those of you who are here, you get to vote. So we've already done running back, and that's the only position we've done so far on offense. We're not doing quarterback until the very end, so don't pick that one. So your choices are we doing O line or as one episode, or are we going to do interior O line this year? What do you
We'll
like? We did
we'll
last year.
we'll do separate offensive tackle, interior offensive line. That we get
Okay,
plenty of guys
so
in here.
our choices, guys, are the two O line spots: O line, interior O line, or offensive tackle. You can pick one of those, or you can pick tight end or wide receiver. So
Yep.
from one of those four positions, pick something. If you guys want to vote, put it in the chat. Most
And if you
votes wins.
Yeah, and if you missed out, you can throw a comment on this video. Put them all in, we'll count them all up.
We got a tight end vote.
Oh
We got
boy.
another tight end vote.
Oh
You guys love tight
boy.
end because you guys are. It's like Joe Shane's in here. He wants another tight end. I
Give
got
me
news for you,
another.
Joe. You ain't gonna be the one picking up. Never mind. Never mind. But, all right, we got two tight end votes. Listen, man, I'll do tight end.
Get it out of the way.
They're you guys are the ones who are here with us. So you voted, and we will oblige. Looks like tight end is a winner. All right, man. We need more tight ends, absolutely, because the ones we have stink. So let's get to tight end next week. Loveland is a giant. Yes, Tino. Loveland is absolutely a giant. Why not? Beast Loveland. All right. With that, we're going to close it out. Thank you guys as always. Tight end next Wednesday night. Giants are playing, I think it's a 1:00 game this week, like at Cleveland, trying to stave off an 0-3 start. We'll be back with you after that on Wednesday going over tight ends. Remember to like and subscribe to the show. Hit the like button if you can on the YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Leave us good comments if you can. If you're kind enough to do it with 5 stars on Apple and all the other stuff, you can find me at Queens_guy on Twitter. Find Monty at MONTECRI5TO, or you can just find us at He's a Giant Pod. Thank you guys. Have a great rest of your week. Go Giants.
Go Giants.